Son, everything you see that the light touches is our farmdom. Everything you see before you is our kingdom. Especially the dill silo. Everyone loves a dill tower where we make our dill chips. And we have a shipyard where we can send out all of our dill Dutch chips. Look at our fields, fully ripe with dill potato chips. Hello everyone. My name is Atratzu, and today we are having a look at inclement. I had to look up the definition of that word, and this normally applies to weather. This game was developed by Killed Pixel Games. It showed up in my Steam curator like a year ago, and I'm finally now getting around to playing it. It was released December 2018. It's priced at $1 or your regional equivalent. It took me about 3 hours to get to the ending of the game, and then 6.5 hours to get all of the achievements in the game. So, Inclement, or Inclement, or I don't know how to pronounce this word. It's not one that I usually work with. Inclement is I don't know, I didn't like any of the names on the Steam store page, so I instead am going to call it an idle resource management game. And yeah, take a quick look. This is what my end game looks like. After 4 hours, this is what you get. And now let us unceremoniously destroy it by starting a new game. This is the first screen that you are met with. This is going to be a pretty short video, but I'm going to walk you through all of these controls as we go through it. The first time I looked at the screen, my eyes glazed over and I said, "Excuse me, what? What am I supposed to do with this information?" It is somewhat color coordinated, but my brain checked out, especially trying to read this font, which is not the best choice. So let's jump into the actual game. The story for Inclement is that you have sold all of your belongings, you've invested all of your money into, here it is, you invested all your life savings on a plot of land and a small house in Northern Europe, which I believe was a very foolish thing to do. And I proceeded to lose my first time playing through because I couldn't figure out how to play the dang old game. And I'm just going to skip that. There's a couple cutscenes, one at the start, one at the end, and one if you fail. So, some people were comparing this game to Kingdom. I've not played Kingdom yet at this point, but I can kind of see where some similarities would be given from just the art aesthetic that they have for this game. So, let's just talk about the controls, because that's really what everyone needs to know first before we actually talk about the game. If you're looking for a challenge, don't watch the video any further, pick up the game and try to figure out for yourself what you're trying to do. First loading the game, and I thought, what have I gotten myself into? And I went from absolutely hating this game to being kind of okay with it once I realized it was more of like an idle game. Then I just left it alone for a few hours, checked in, left it alone for a few more hours, checked in, and voila, I had finished the game and gotten easy achievements. So, the way that you win or lose, well, if you win Inclement if you can keep from going bankrupt. That's your goal. Put in 3 hours of time, eventually the year will be up. Let's see here, do they give us the tooltip here? Whoop. And higher, no, over 2 years, no, there it is. So the game will end in the year 1939, but you can still continue playing later from where you left off without losing any progress. So at 19, if that's a 2, it's either 1939 or 1929. I can't tell, the font is awful. Regardless, whenever that date shows up, the end of the game has been reached. And you can keep playing and finish off the achievements, but that is your goal, to get to that point. So, you have your main house here. Let's talk about the buttons. And if you forgot, you can always press H to bring up this monstrosity. So they're color coordinated. You use A and you use D to move the camera area. And notice at the bottom of the screen, there's that transparent white bar. That is telling you where you're selecting. So no mouse action in this game. A and D are what you use to go to the right and left. Now, there are a couple help buttons that you should know about. Help, which is H on your keyboard, and that's what's bringing up this quick selection menu to remind you. And then Q, which is telling you kind of like your beginning quest stuff. This becomes very useless very quickly, as does H. After you have done the first couple of things in the game, you really don't need to use these ever again, and you can forget that they exist. But that's giving you the tip. The first thing that you need to do is clear a field, because we need to get some grain, because we need to make some money. But let's keep on talking over the rest of the buttons. W and S are actually bound, but they act as your arrow keys, as you see on the arrow keys on the right. And if you want to exit, you press escape. Shift said speed ×2. I thought that meant speed as in time of day speed, so you'd progress through the game faster. That is not the case. What it does mean is that when you're scrolling to the right and the left, if you hold down shift, you scroll faster. So that's what speed meant. It very much puzzled me. And you can progress or open in a menu by pressing the space bar or the enter key. And it takes a little bit to get used to it. It certainly took me a little bit. Once I got used to the controls, I was fine, but this graphic didn't help. Again, it's color coordinated, so once you understand it's color coordinated, you're like, okay. And then, you know, you play a game long enough, you can just pick up the quirks that it takes. Okay, so that's your introduction to the game. At this point now, you have enough information to play through and figure it out for yourself. This is going to be a quick video, though, because there's really not much that I need to explain before you've seen most of the game, and then it just turns into an idle game and you leave it alone. There's not much content here. I hate to put it that way, but that's just the reality of it. So, if you're trying to select something, you see that's main house. I look for it to change to forest. Then I press E to interact, and then it wants to clear it. That's the only option that you have, so I press spacebar. Ta-da, our forest is now cleared. We can do the same on the side over here. I'd recommend that you just go through and you just clear out your forests. But money's a little bit tight right now. So we want to be profitable. So if you'll look over here, if you select the main house, you press E, and then I just use the W and S keys to go up and down, but you could just use arrow keys. I go down to wealth, and it shows how much money you are gaining or you are losing, and the estimation on how much of a profit or a loss that you're going to be taking. So, and then this is the number of buildings, the types of buildings that you have a limit on anyway, and then upgrade and the cost for upgrading. So this is where you are, it's resource management. You've got wood, stone, cattle, grain. Some of these items you'll need to buy, some of them you will just generate by having workers. For example, wood and stone are already very slowly going up just over time because you have workers that are just doing that in their free time, I suppose. We want to make a field. So, go down one, make a field, ta-da. Now the grain goes through a cycle, and we really didn't get through that whole cycle. Let's head to town, go to the grain company, sell grain directly, ta-da, we have made some money. And you will notice, now we need to wait for the season to change again. You will notice that that's the gameplay loop, and we only can have one grain. We can have more grain. Let's see here. What would be the tip be? Build a granary to store more grain. Okay. So we have a cut forest space. We want to build a granary. And that is going to cost us $200. We don't have $200, but we can buy it anyway. 5 stones and 40 wood. We have all that, and it will increase our max grain +2. +2+, apparently. So, let's build a granary. Ka-cha. Now you'll notice that we are in the negative monies. So that's not good. Pretty soon here there'll be a pop-up that will be counting down how many months we have until we have to file for bankruptcy. If you spend too much time in negative wealth, you will lose, and that is the fail condition in this game. Now you'll notice it is harvesting season, so now the grain is growing. This is kind of suboptimal. We really should have additional fields, but I'm just going to walk you through the basics here of what's happening. It goes up, and the number can only go as high as the storage space that you have. So we now have 1.20 grain. Let's head back to town, head back to the grain company, sell grain directly. Ta-da, we are no longer in fear of losing the farm. The people, the big men in suits aren't going to come and shake us down. So let's, can we turn this into a field? I think it's just free to make it a field, right? It costs 100. Wah, wah, wah. Make field. So again, there's a limit to how many we can do with our building, and we have reached the max right here. So we can only have 3 fields, so if we tried to build another field right now, our max fields has been reached. We can build more fields by upgrading our main house. What's required to upgrade the main house? 80 wood, 30 stone, $1,200. And the benefit is, if we upgrade it, we will get 2 more max fields, and we will get +1 max cow houses and +1 saws. So can we even make a cow house at this point? No, we can't even make a cow house at this point. I would recommend trying to get to the cow house as soon as possible, because that will increase just your passive wealth income increased. So yeah, your goal is to try to get to the point that you can AFK as soon as possible. And that's relatively easy when you understand what you're doing. When you don't understand what you're doing, you go bankrupt real quick. All right, looks like we almost maxed out our grain. Let's head back to the grain company. You can only sell 4 tons a year, so 3.61 grain is actually 3.61 tons of grain. That's tons grain. Sell it directly. Ta-da, we are back in comfortable land. If you ever needed to quickly take out money, you could take out a loan. But if you take out a loan, if you have a look at your wealth, you see that loans are, they weigh pretty heavy on you. So you typically don't want to take out loans because you'll lose more in the long run. Kind of like real life. I could have gotten through the whole game without taking a loan. Pay back your loan. I could have gotten through the whole game without paying the loan. Also notice the color difference. That's a smart. It's smart to show that you're currently in debt. So it looks like you have lots of money, but you have to pay back those loans. So that's just a smart extra detail to have in the game. And yeah, so the goal in this game is to try to find different ways of getting money, trying to build your wealth passively over time so you can just leave the game by itself. There are a couple ways to do that. One that is less hands-on is if you go back to town and then you take a contract, then you will not get as much money from selling grain, but you will be able to automatically sell grain, and that means that you can leave the game unattended. And again, you can go build a cow house, or a barn, as most people call it, and then you can just buy a cow, and then that will get you this threshold of money per month. So animals are always in your best interest to have. It's important that you understand kind of the 2 modes that you're switching between here. If you head to town, town is where you are going to buy land, which you're going to need to put more fields on, build more buildings on, progress farther. The vendor, if you ever need to get anything, if you're tired of waiting for slow stuff to happen, you can just go to the vendor and buy things. Or there are a few emergencies where I had to sell wood and stone to try to get back money because I was impatient and in the negatives and nearly lost the game at that point. You also have a vendor who eventually shows up. Not a vendor, an oil person that you can sell oil to. So you kind of progress to that point. You also have the workers hall. You hire workers. It's 1,000 to hire them, and then it costs you a lot of money per month. One of the tips in the game is that you can just buy workers and you can just fire them after the project is done. So if we go to build, do we have anyone that requires workers? That's a good example. So if we want to make an oil tower, there's a lot of requirements for an oil tower. By the way, I know we're going bankrupt soon. It's okay. If you wanted to build an oil tower, you would need to have a lot of resources that we currently don't have available. You need electricity, which requires you to have access to water. There are 2 land squares in the game that have water. You will need to buy more land to be able to get access to those. You also need to have a minimum of 21 workers, a boatload of money, and you need to have a level 5 main house. But if you do all that, then you will be able to produce oil, which basically tells you that you're in the end game. All right, well, I think that's probably enough to talk about for the game. So we're just gonna bankruptcy it out. If you wanted to kind of dodge through this, what you could do is you could go sell grain. That would probably bring us out of that right now. Or you could take a loan. Again, really straightforward. You want to get to the point that you would build a cow house, and then you would be fine. So if we wanted to build a cow house, we would need to upgrade the main house first. But here we go. Time for bankruptcy. Game over, man. Game over. And there it is. If only I would have acted faster. After many years of hard work, you are driven into bankruptcy. You are driven into bankruptcy. And there he goes, marching off into the distance. So again, think of this more of an idle game, but it actually has a fail state. There's not much to say about the game. There's not much to play about the game, but it's an indie developer. They sent the game to me through my Steam curator. It's only $1. If this interests you, you could totally pick it up, check it out. And it's going to be like 1 day of playing, and it's going to be passive play. Some people will be attracted to that. Some people will not be attracted to that. There's some Steam achievements in there. It's an easy 100% achievement game if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah. That's really all I have to say about it. Thank you for watching. My name, again, is Atratzu, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.